Hey everyone, Israel is currently in a war against the terror organization Hamas, and we know how hard it can be to keep up with all the news. So if you haven't had the time to stay on top of the latest developments out of Israel, we're here for you. I'm Ladar Gavelazi, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review. And even amid major IDF ground operations in northern and southern Gaza, terrorist rocket fire into southern and central Israel is continuing. Barrages of rockets struck Tel Aviv and Ashkelon with injuries and damages reported. More from ILTV's William Sharon.
The latest barrage of rockets fired by Hamas from Gaza reached north to central Tel Aviv. Air raid sirens in the greater Tel Aviv area sent hundreds of thousands to seek shelter. A few direct hits were reported. Sharpel hitting a school, a main street, and the beach. One man reportedly sustained moderate injuries. Also, a rocket sharper was found in the classroom of a school in Ganei Tikva, a suburb of Tel Aviv. In this video, two pedestrians luckily escaped injury from a rocket fragments on a Tel Aviv street. Closer to Gaza, terror rockets struck a residential building in Ashkelon. Two older women were lightly wounded by sharpel and were taken to a nearby hospital. Fortunately, most of the residents were either not at home or sheltered. Authorities are reminding civilians that rocket fire is continuing, and they should obey the warning system and seek shelter when required. Palestinian terrorists have fired more than 11,500 rockets towards Israeli territory since Hamas launched a war against the Jewish state on October 7th.
And remember those happy photos of Israeli hostages waving and smiling upon their release? Well, it turns out there's a reason for that. According to the Knesset Health Committee and the Israeli Health Ministry, the hostages were given tranquilizers ahead of their release to make them look happy and relaxed. This is the latest revelation to emerge as to the conditions of the hostages. Many details are still classified, many hostages still finding it too difficult to talk about. But slowly their stories from captivity are beginning to emerge, and they point to horrific conditions. The details in the following report.
You see a child smiling to the camera. This is a hollow child with a smile, with hope, with a future. But what these children have gone through is simply unimaginable.
Dr. Efrat Harlev, CEO of Schneider Children's Medical Center, which has been treating 19 of the children released from captivity, shared some details about their conditions in a press conference in Tel Aviv on Monday.
What I can say about their medical condition is that they all came back very skinny. Some lost between 10 to 15% of their weight.
Dr. Harlev shared that the children need to be specially fed upon their return and address the scarcity of food available while in captivity.
We saw how they were eating. They were not eating. At first, they were picking on the food. We gave them food, but they were picking on it. They were eating such small bites. And when their family asked them, why are you eating such small bites? They whispered, because we have to keep it for later.
Dr. Harlev also addressed the psychological torment that Hamas captors subjected these children to. Children were told to be quiet at all times. They could not stand, they could not walk. They even were not allowed to cry. And so the children returned home, able to speak only in whispers.
One child told us, I actually thought that everyone forgot about me. Why did I think that way? Because this is what I've been told by the Hamas kidnappers. They told me, she said, that nobody cares about you anymore. Nobody is looking for you. Nobody wants you back. You can hear the bombs around. All they want to do is kill you and us together. A 13-year-old girl, this is what she has to hear for 50 days.
Indeed, family members have also came out to speak to the trauma this ordeal has caused, especially among the older children.
Noam, my 12-year-old daughter, don't allow me to leave the house, to leave her premise for more than... I just ask her, can I get the trash down? And she wouldn't permit it. So she's like hanging out to me very closely. She have woken sometimes during the night screaming. but in generally they're in a good state. She's processing everything.
He too talked about his daughter's inability to talk above a whisper in the initial days of her release.
For more than 48 hours, all the kids were still whispering to each other, and all the communication was only whispering 48 hours after they were released. All of them.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple. And moving on, there are still 138 hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. Last night, Prime Minister and his security cabinet met with the families and with hostages that had already been released. It was an intense meeting, and new details emerged of the hostages' time in captivity and of sexual allegations. Let's take a look.
The Associated Press revealed on Wednesday that at least 10 of the Israelis released by Hamas, both men and women, were sexually assaulted or abused during their time in captivity. The report quoted a doctor who treated some of the released hostages, who spoke on condition of anonymity to protect the victims' identities. This is the latest account in a string of testimonies and mounting evidence of the sexual atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th and since with hostages. On Tuesday evening, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the cases of sexual abuse and rapes and criticized international human rights organizations for their silence, sending them a clear message.
I say to the women's rights organizations, to the human rights organizations, you've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you? I expect all civilized leaders, governments, nations to speak up against this atrocity.
Prior to these statements on Tuesday, the Prime Minister and members of his war cabinet met with some of the released hostages and family members. According to leaked recordings of the meeting to Israeli media, some of the released hostages confirmed the sexual assault. Aviva Sigal, who was freed from Hamas captivity last week and whose husband is still being held hostage, reportedly said during the meeting that some of the women were being touched. The meeting was tense as families of the hostages demanded the government do more to secure their release, with one family member saying time was running out.
Day 61 in the war with Hamas in Gaza. There are intense and ongoing maneuvers in the north and south of the terrorist enclave. And IDF Chief Herzi Halevi says the operation has moved into Phase 3. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
IDF troops are fighting simultaneously, advancing in the center of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza while overrunning Hamas headquarters in Jabalia in the north. The IDF pushed deeper into Jabalia in northern Gaza Strip with a 551st Reserve Brigade and the Navy's Shayetet 13 Commando Unit raiding Hamas's General Security Headquarters. IDF troops encircled the city, and the 162nd Division are operating in Jabalia to destroy remaining Hamas assets. IDF tanks pushed ahead with expanding its ground offensive into the center of Khan Yunis, where it believes much of the Hamas leadership is hiding. IDF Chief Halevi said that the ongoing battles on the ground are the heaviest since the start of the war 61 days ago.
בחלוף 60 ימים מפרוץ הלחימה, כוחותינו מחתרים את מרחב ח'אן יונס בדרום הרצועה. אנחנו ממשיכים במקביל להעמיק את ההישג גם בצפון הרצועה.
The army chief said the IDF had entered the third phase of the war to destroy Hamas.
עברנו בימים האחרונים לשלב השלישי של התמרון, השתלטנו על מעוזים רבים של החמאס בצפון הרצועה, וכעת אנחנו פועלים מול מרכזי הכובד שלו בדרום.
Meanwhile, Israel's key ally, the United States, is cautioning Israel to do more to avoid civilian casualties as operations shift to the south, where many Gazans have taken refuge after fleeing the devastated north. They are also demanding that Israel allow in more fuel. Israel has allowed ample humanitarian aid, including fuel, to enter Gaza, but much of the international assistance has been stolen by Hamas and used to sustain the terrorist group.